Hey everyone, welcome to my review play of Blazing Chrome. So this is a format series that isn't super popular, but I enjoy making them, so even though it doesn't seem to get a lot of views, I'm going to continue to do them. Just because I think they're a lot of fun to make. So today I'm playing Blazing Chrome, a run and gun that I've been really impressed with, that I actually had not heard about until the day it came out. Apparently it's been pretty hype release for a lot of people. I know Aggro Sky's been looking forward to it, he said, for 2 years now, so yeah, I was late to the party. I just saw it came out. Iconoclast recommended it on Twitter, and so I was like, well, you know, he knows his run and gun, so if he recommends it, I bet it's pretty good. And so I got my hands on it, and I was really impressed with it. And so I thought it'd be fun to do a little review play. So the first thing that struck me when I started playing the game is, I think a lot of reviewers have commented this, of course, too, is its resemblance to Contra. So rather than just dwell on that, because you'll hear that from, I think, everyone else, I also wanted to point out some other games that I think it really reminded me of. One being Metal Slug. I think that one's been mentioned before too, with the knife system and getting in the mechs and all that. But another one that it really reminds me of that I don't think many people have talked about is Mega Man X. I think this game, maybe not directly, but subconsciously, or maybe directly, takes quite a bit of inspiration from Mega Man X. Begin with the main character here, Mavra, I believe her name is. I actually didn't know she was a girl until the end of the game, the final cutscene. I thought she was just a long-haired, like, rocker dude. He or she reminds me a lot of Zero from Mega Man X, with the hair and everything. So I thought the sprite design looked really cool. And a lot of the boss fights and stuff, as you'll see later on, kind of remind me of some Mega Man X boss fights. And the jumping system, I haven't played Contra in a really long time, so I can't recall the jumping system in that. But in Metal Slug, it's very different than Blazing Chrome here. So in Metal Slug, your jumps are fixed, like in Castlevania. So you press jump and then your character just jumps, and there's no control over the height or... Actually, Metal Slug 1, not a lot of people know this, but you can actually short hop in that game with a really quick press of the jump button, but then that's removed in the other Metal Slugs. But whether you're short hopping or regular hopping, you can't control it, you know, like Mario or Mega Man style. Whereas in Blazing Chrome you can. Which I think's cool, because I think the game's designed to take that into account. And it plays really well. It controls really well. So I guess I'll begin by talking about the control system and what I think makes the game unique compared to other indie run and guns and stuff. So in addition to the Mega Man style jumps, there's also a weapon system. I don't know if... I think that might be similar to something you get in Contra. I haven't played that much Contra, which might be surprising, considering how much I love running guns, but... I mean, I've played a fair amount, but it was never super... like a super important series to me, so I didn't play it that much. But yeah, there's a weapon switching system, which is kind of Mega Man-like as well, right? The way it works is that, so there's 4 different weapon types, and then when you die you lose the weapon type that's selected unless you're using the regular buster cannon, machine gun, whatever. And so yeah, it's fun to figure out, like gameplay wise, which guns suit which situations better. And I think the level design does a good job of kind of giving you an idea of, hey, this gun might be really good against this boss, or this gun might be really good in this section here. And I'll point that out. But what's really unique is, instead of having a dash, or absolutely nothing, there you have this really cool dodge roll mechanic, where if you crouch and then jump, you'll dodge roll. And you're not invincible when you do that. So it is vulnerable, but it's just fast, and I think it's a really nice addition, especially when you play a lot of Metal Slug. there's a lot of times where you're stuck in a crouching position and you kind of need to move quickly, but there's no way to do that. So the dodge roll allows you to do that. And a really, really useful bit of advice I have for people that I figured out. I'm sure other players know this, but in case you haven't, and I just kind of figured this out on my own. You can cancel the dodge roll by quarter circle back. That's really, really helpful in a lot of sections where, because the dodge roll goes quite a ways, and so if you're just doing that and not canceling it, it's a huge commitment. But if you know how to cancel it, you can quickly use it and maneuver stuff around. It gives you a lot more maneuverability. So that's something I would recommend, and I'll point out the instances I do it where you're canceling it. So in case you haven't been able to tell by the input display up above, I actually played this using an arcade stick, and I think that suited the game really well. I mean, if you're a pad player or a keyboard player, but the game controls really well with arcade stick. And it is a fun hybrid between, because it doesn't feel like you're exactly playing a Metal Slug game, but it feels like a cool hybrid between a Metal Slug game and a Mega Man game. And then there's lots of sections like this which feel kind of like shmup sections. It's funny, there's a bike section later on that reminds me a lot of the Donkey Kong Country mine carts. I'll point that out when we get there. But like right here, for instance, I remember deeply regretting trying to use the whip there. Yeah, the whip isn't very good against this guy. You want to go with the grenade launcher. Overall, it's hard to say definitively what the best weapon is, but I would say it's probably the grenade launcher. Like, I don't know stats wise if it's the best, but usually if you have the grenade launcher, you can get through most sections okay. It's really versatile, and so my favorite two weapons actually ended up being the default machine gun and the grenade launcher. And there are certain sections where I found that the default machine gun, like this section here, is actually, for me, more useful than trying to use like the whip or the grenade launcher. Just because it's pretty powerful for just a default weapon. But like against bosses and stuff, you usually want the grenade launcher or the whip or the power laser, just depending on the fight. This one, the grenade launcher, is really good because it can be used to cancel out its bullets, this boss's bullets and stuff. Yeah, and so you'll see, in addition to the weapon power-ups, there's also assist power-ups you can get. I don't know the technical term, but like the one you saw there was defense bot, where you get a power shield, like in Sonic. That's really helpful, and it gives you 2 extra hits. I think there's 3 of them. There's the speed one, which makes you move faster and gives you a double jump. There's the just option attack one, where there's a little guy with a machine gun. That's really cool. But I think when you're playing, at this point, I think the defense one is just the best, because it gives you 2 extra hits. I mean, that's so valuable. Of course, if you're... oh. Yeah, of course, I just stood up into that bomb, or into that shot. I think if you're speedrunning and doing other things, I could see the other ones being more useful, but if you're playing for survival, I think the defense bot is just too good to deny. And see right here, these are kind of like... again, I don't know if this is a feature in Contra or not, but you can, by timing how you destroy those, you can choose what different power-ups it gives you. So I remember, so I've gone through and I've read some reviews for this game because I was curious to hear what other people thought about it, like mainstream reviewers, because I don't think I've made it that much of a secret that more and more these days I really don't trust a lot of mainstream reviewers to review games like this, to review more arcade style games, because I feel like a lot of the aspects of what makes arcade games good or interesting is kind of lost in the conversation. Like, what makes really... I think people are really tuned into what makes, like, home console games good, and what makes RPGs good, and what makes stuff like that, or platformers good. But I think a lot of mainstream reviewers still really struggle to understand what makes an arcade game good, what makes a shmup good, what makes a run and gun good. Now I'll give you a good example here. So I was reading the Kotaku review of this game, and the reviewer said, oh, it's a great game, but like, he gave it a good review, but you know, they always add in certain criticisms, and his was that he felt like the level design was really didn't have enough variety, I think was the quote. It was something like that, like it didn't have enough variety. And I remember reading that and thinking, okay, that criticism makes no sense, because this game has a ridiculous amount of level variety. Each stage, as far as level design goes, each stage is very unique, and it does a really good job of balancing like the core running, gunning gameplay with also more, I'm trying to think of the term, not gimmicky because that's not it, but more specialized sections. It does a really good, like for instance the shmup section or the biker section, or there's just a lot of different sections of the game that have unique concepts, but then it also balances out with sections like this, right, that are just straight up run and gun sections. And I think the game is really well designed and finds a really good balance there, so I feel like that criticism was pretty unfounded, pretty misleading, because the level variety in this game is really ridiculous. I think what he meant was, he was talking like visually, he wished the stages looked more different from each other, like, I don't know, a snow stage or something, and then a water stage, that kind of thing, which I don't know if I even agree with that, because I don't know, I think that's fine if games want to do that, but I don't think that's something that needs to be expected of a game, that they'll have really like a huge amount of variation between the stage designs as far as aesthetics. For instance, Battle Garega, and I think this game too, it creates a progressing theme where the stages are very distinct from each other, but they're not like completely different locales. It's all in one setting. So yeah, there's going to be similar color palettes, there's going to be similar overall visual looks. So I really don't know where that criticism was coming from, and I kind of felt like the reviewer was just, I don't know. He didn't really clarify either what he was talking about. Because I think, like, for instance here we're on a train section, that's unique. The next stage, it has nothing to do with trains and looks totally different. So this boss here is a bitch without the laser. Luckily I have the laser, so... But yeah, this is one of those sections where the game... See, the level design tells you right before this boss, here's the laser. Use it. And the thing is, if you die, then it punishes you. But, yeah, I think the game is really well designed as far as leading the player naturally to understanding what weapons to use where and what weapons are effective. See, there's the dodge roll in action. It's fun to apply some shmup concepts into running guns, now that I play more shmups. For instance, right there with that lightning sequence, I used a shmup technique called tap dodging, where you basically just slowly dodge your way across the screen. In running guns, that's usually not a thing, but in that section, that's how it was designed, for you to tap dodge through it. Because if you run, you're going to corner yourself and get struck. So I thought that was cool. See, I think what the review was talking about was I'm assuming he wanted like drastically different color palettes between the stages or something, because this one has a brown color palette as well, but it's it's total. I think it's different and distinct. I don't think it's redundant. So another cool thing that the game allows you to do, as you saw, was it allows you to pick the first 4 stages in any order you want. However, I think if you're just playing for your first clear, stick with the default stage order. And I think the game was designed really cleverly, where you can see there's different star ratings with the levels. It'll say, oh, play, or you could actually play reverse stage order. That might be interesting too. Because if you play reverse stage order, then you'd get the hardest stage out of the way first. Maybe that's something I'll do in hardcore mode, is play reverse stage order. That way, save the easier stages for last. But anyway, what the default stage order does is that makes the 3rd stage easier than the 2nd stage. And I think that's clever, because what it's doing is it's giving you kind of this dynamic difficulty where, okay, the first stage is easy, you gather up your resources. The 2nd stage is actually pretty challenging, so this is where you're going to lose some resources. And then the 3rd stage is easy or easier, and so it's another chance to build up your resources for the final 2 stages, which are the hardest 2. That's a little booby trap right there. So right here I'm using the old Metal Slug method of, I don't know what you call it, like screen inchworming, that's what I've called it, where you slowly advance and then retreat, slowly advance and retreat to bait out spawning enemies and then killing them from a safe position. I'm sure there's a more like recognized term for doing that, but I call it inchworming. Like right here. I don't do it there, but this elevator sequence is really cool. So the trick to this sequence is knowing what enemies to prioritize. So even though these flying beetles look scary, it's actually the jumping, I don't know what they are, jumping bugs that you want to kill. Jumping prey mantises that you want to kill first. Again, that's a really common theme in a lot of the level design of this game, is it tests you to figure out, okay, which enemy is more dangerous, which one do you need to kill first. So here I was experimenting because part of me was wondering, does the whip do more damage per second than the grenade launcher? If you were just to sit there and point blank an enemy with both weapons, would the whip kill it faster, or would the grenade launcher? I felt like the whip would do it, and it probably does, but against this boss, just point blank him with the grenade launcher. It kills him a lot easier and faster than using the whip, I'll tell you that much. I think I even at the end just say screw it and bust out the grenade launcher. Yeah, I just say, alright, enough of the whip. Let's just nade this guy. That elevator section reminds me of Turtles in Time. Again, it's interesting because I don't play a lot of Contra, so I don't know how much of this is directly derived from Contra. Like, I don't know if Contra has elevator sections like that. And so it's fun to point out other games that have those same level design things that it also might be inspired by. Man, I really love the sprite art of this game. It's really nice balance between being retro looking, but also with a lot more added detail. Like, I like retro games or retro style games that don't exactly look like they belong to any particular console directly. Like, you could say, oh, this looks like a SNES game, but it also has some stuff going on in it that you're like, I don't know if that's quite what the SNES could handle. Or a Genesis, same thing. And so you could say, well, it's like a Sega Saturn game or something, where it might be more of a 32-bit style console rather than the 16-bits. That's what I like, because I feel like the 32-bit generation of 2D games was too short-lived. I think there could have been a lot more done with that with that style and with that technology, but you know, 3D came along, so I think it's cool when modern games kind of go back and ramp things up beyond 8-bit. You know, for me, honestly, 8-bit's, in my opinion, played out. I'm kind of sick of it. I mean, that can change, of course, but at the time I'm recording this, that's how I feel about 8-bit style games. I'm just kind of like, yeah, 8-bit's fine and everything, but it's kind of just, I've had enough. And I've never been that much of an 8-bit guy, so that could also be the reason. This is an interesting boss fight because it's one of those bosses where when you first fight it, it's a lot harder because you don't know what you're doing. But once you know its patterns and stuff, it's ridiculously easier than you thought it would be. But it does have a lot going on. You have to, the trick to this boss is not only memorizing like the trajectories of those I-beams, but also just being able to watch all the aspects of the screen. Just zooming out and watching all 4 of those whatever plants. Because it'll try and snipe you with those little acid balls. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, so I was talking to Shmup Master Aggro about this game, and I was mentioning that I really appreciated the lock mechanic where you can hold still and lock the character, and apparently that's something from Contra, so that is in Contra. But I still think the game makes really good use of that control method, because it adds an interesting, it's hard to say, it adds an interesting dynamic to the level design where, so you can now go through sections. So in Metal Slug, you have to move when you aim. You can't aim and hold still. Like if you want to shoot diagonally, you have to walk forward or walk backwards. You have to move. But in this game you don't, you can lock yourself, so you can more strategically place yourself on the screen. I don't think either system's necessarily better than the other, but I think if you do have this locking mechanic, you need to figure a way of how to balance it well with the level design. And I think this game does a really good job of that. Well, you'll notice it's never quite that easy to place yourself. You always have to kind of be moving around. The game makes you move. You can't just hold still and just snipe everything. I think that's a really good... I was talking with some people about what makes a shmup good, what makes an arcade game good, level design wise, and you know, that's a really arbitrary thing to try, not arbitrary, but really, how would you say, complicated issue. It's a really unclear, esoteric subject matter. See, I dodged it there because I think, nah, the defense bot's too good to lose. But I think there are a few universal ideas you want to keep in mind. And the first one is you want an arcade game that makes you move. Now, you don't have to be moving absolutely all the time, but it needs to force you to move after a very short amount of time. You never can feel too comfortable just sitting around. And I think that's the problem with a lot of, you know, Euro shmups and stuff, is you can literally just plant yourself on the screen, and like some badly designed running guns, you can just plant yourself in one spot and you don't really have to move around. Blazing Chrome does a really good job of making you move with all the sections. I hate that mini-boss. It reminds me a lot of that mini-boss in Metal Slug. The dude with the machine gun in the snow stage. I kind of wonder if he was inspired by that mini-boss, because it has a similar voice sample too, and kind of a similar way you fight him. See, those defensive bots are just too useful to pass up. So far with my own gameplay in this run, I think I've been playing really well. I mean, I have a lot of extends. I think I've only died it once or twice. In this game, normal mode, it's pretty generous with its extends, so... This was a bad idea. This was a big mistake. So I normally use the whip on this guy, and I feel like the whip is the correct weapon to use. But I thought I'd be cheeky and try and use the power laser, and yeah, it did not go well at all, so I just went back to the whip at the end. See right there, I cancelled my dodge roll. That's really handy, especially in the last stage. So here's the attack bot. I really enjoy using the attack bot. The only issue is just the defense bot is so helpful that I almost never use the attack bot. Because you typically get a choice of which one you want to use. So against this boss, I figured the speed bot would be better. But I'm gonna give you a heads up now. This is the worst part of the run, where I get absolutely wrecked by this boss. Absolutely wrecked. And the reason comes down to an issue I've been having with the controls. I'm sure the devs are fully aware of this, and it was a decision to have it this way. But in this section, you'll find it is very, very easy to kill yourself. Because if you press down and B, if you're holding down and press B, you fall down just like that and die. The thing is you want to aim down to shoot him, right? And then you want to jump up. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to aim down, shoot him, let go of holding down, and then jump. Like, that's what you have to do. However, that's much easier said than done, for my hands anyway. Where I have a really bad habit of holding down when I jump and falling and dying. And so I still struggle on that boss. I was hoping that if you use the locking button, you would not fall down. You just stay there. But that's not the case. Even if you're holding lock, you will fall down. I thought this section was really fun. It's like, there's that famous Sega shmup, or whatever, famous Sega game that has this style. I guess you could also say it's a bit like, is it Outzone? I swear. I know what the game is, you know, the one where you fly around a rocket pack. I can't remember what it's called though. Anyway, I'd love to see more shmups in this style. The pseudo 3D. Because it's not necessarily a rail gun. It's much more like I don't know what it is, but yeah. I'd love to see more shmups in this style. I'm sure programming them is an absolute pain in the ass, though. So a little tip with using the rocket jetpack thing here is when you lock on, you'll Z-target it, like in Zelda sort of, where your target will remain locked in place and then you move around your target. The only issue is whenever you let go of your lock, it kind of bends your momentum into where you were locked in, and that can result into you flying into shit you didn't mean to. So just be really aware of that when you're locking onto stuff. You need to make sure the coast is clear before you de-lock, otherwise you're just gonna probably swerve into oncoming fire. I think it happens to me in the run, so I'll show you when I get there. Some cinematic moments there. Part of me wonders if maybe there's a little one or two too many of those, but you know, on repeat playthroughs and stuff like that. I don't think it's on the borderline if there's too much or not. Maybe I don't do it. I think I do. Probably on the boss. So yeah, you're going to want to lock onto the various guns, then dodge the enemy attacks. Yeah, that's why it's important to understand how the locking mechanism works. Played a lot of Star Fox before this, so I was prepared to handle the railgun style sections. Alright, here we go. This is the clinchers section. Last two stages. This is where the difficulty really gets going. So I found that in the speeder bike sections, I mostly just like to use the default gun. Feels like it's really effective in these sections. Thank you, defense shields. So here's a snow section. See? So there is some visual difference here, right? We're going through the snow now. So this section, this reminds me so much of Donkey Kong Country minecarts. That had to have been the inspiration. Like even some of the jumps and stuff, and there's like those rails like in the minecarts. That's the tricky part. And I completely forget to jump. I was so proud of myself for making that tricky short hop that I just forget to jump. Oh yeah, I don't have the grenade. So since I died, I don't have the grenade, which makes this mini boss way easier and faster. You can just destroy him with the grenade. But luckily I played this stage enough to where I've memorized all his attacks, so not too big of a deal. But the default gun takes forever to kill him. Again here, grenades would be really handy. Just a little too slow there. That timing's always a little tricky. Didn't even jump. Sometimes when enemies die, jumped right into them. Sometimes when enemies die, bullets can get mixed in with the death animations of the enemies. Oh, yeah, I totally forgot that you have to just full jump that. You can't hop on the center there. Yeah, this game does have a certain amount of memorization where, like, especially in this part of the game where you just have to know what's coming. Or like against this boss, you just need to know what's gonna happen, otherwise you're gonna get completely killed. See, I should have the whip for this guy, or the grenade launcher. I have neither, so this becomes a really long fight, which is the default gun. Takes forever. I think I do a pretty good job, though. He'd be dead by now if I had the other guns. It's an interesting fight because... oh, he does get me. Because if you're too far away, he'll shotgun you, and you'll get caught. But if you're too close, he'll shotgun you point blank. So you have to stay at this special mid-distance. I got really comfortable just using the default shot for a lot of these run and gun sections. It's really good. I do know that the hanging from the lines and firing, that's very Contra. Even I, who's only played Contra a little bit, recognize that. That's like a signature thing in Contra. So after playing the game 4 or 5 times, it was just the playthrough before this one that I realized this bot has an air dash. I had no idea. I thought it just had a really floaty jump. The air dash definitely comes in handy though. So the way this thing works is it has a bitchin' cannon, but it'll overheat if you shoot it too much. So you have to just use it in short bursts like this, so it doesn't overheat on you. And for whatever reason, I can't get the extend. So there's an extend over to the left there, but the screen's not having it. I don't know what the hell happened there. You probably have to do something special to get it to appear, and I messed up the requirements. These guys are not fun. You definitely want to try your best to keep your robot alive. This is gonna come in handy. See, this is the part where the air dash really is useful. So right now I'm really low. You can actually get out of the vehicles, but I never do. In Metal Slug, that's a big part of controlling the slug, is knowing when to eject from it, because you get a ridiculous amount of invincibility frames, so you can abuse the eject to your advantage. In this game I didn't really find that necessary. Maybe in hardcore mode that'll become more necessary. I was happy I got through that section with my mech still. Because I'm one hit from death with it. And you want to... oh yeah, there you go, it replenished its health. Nice. Because you want to preserve it, because you get a hidden extend with it later on. This section, man, I struggled with this. The main reason why was actually because I always underjumped. I always thought I was landing on the platforms earlier than I was, so I just fall through. Just the way those platforms look, I kept thinking the bottoms were lower than they actually are. You visually have to just land right on the top of that thing. The middle section is not part of the platform at all. So I was really happy to get through that section without dying. That's some Donkey Kong. That, again, there's another kind of thing that reminds me of Donkey Kong Country. There's a section like that. Though I'm sure a lot of platformers in general share similar level designs after a while. But I feel like that minecart thing had to have been somewhat inspired by Donkey. There's the hidden extend. I'm juggling the power-ups there. I'm trying to keep my defense. The game wants me to... there we go. The game keeps trying to give me the speed bot. Getting through this section with the robot is not easy. Because of this right here. Like, I've never been able... you have to be so fast to get through that. Still alive though. Just inching along the screen. You know, this level isn't that hard once you get past the speeder bike section. There, I tried ejecting from it. It was pretty helpful. This is a lot harder with the mech because your hitboxes are so much bigger. Whereas making the dodges on foots. So what I probably should have done is exited and just killed it on foot and then re-entered for the boss fight. But this boss fight's really easy once you know how to do it. So you grenade it, you watch for the acid balls, and then it'll spawn beneath you, slice, slice, jump, because those acid balls. When it goes back in the water, it spawns them. And grenade, and then just watch for the ball. Time that, jump. One more, and that's it. Very easy boss fight once you know how it works. So looking good. Got 4 lives going into the final stage. I knew it was going to be iffy here. This final stage is tough. And it's really just a boss rush. It's not really a stage necessarily. Okay, you cannot deny this is straight up Mega Man X. And that armored armadillo. This dude's like armored armadillo. I do a really good job on this mini boss fight. It's probably the best job I've ever done with him against him in a run. I didn't even get hit. The second form's actually easier than the first, I think, once you know how it works. This is another part where knowing how to cancel your rolls is really important. Otherwise you're just going to roll into the falling debris. Don't forget to kill the light, there's an extend in there. Then I just get the defense again. So this is one of those mini bosses where once you know how he works, he's not too bad, but man, at first he seems just like a killer. Like an asshole. Your first few times fighting him. He does a really good job trapping you. So there was a while there where I was trying to get cute and I was trying to dodge and slice him at the same time, but I was like, nah, forget it. The risk reward really isn't not worth it. When I can just shoot him when he's in the air. Got me there. So the trick to this part is that it's just memorizing when he does what, because it's the same every time. So it does 2 like long attacks, and then you gotta get under him for the slam attack. There you go. Once you know that section's really easy. But if you don't have that memorized, he'll get you. This is a lot like the final boss of Mega Man X. Like, straight up almost the same thing. I mean, it is different, but like with the hands and the way you dodge the attacks, very similar. The diamonds are different though. That's a new element. You just have to memorize what each diamond color does. So the brown diamond does those cross-shaped bullet patterns. The green laser. This part, I was like, whoa, trippy. I think everyone will recognize the Turtles in Time. Like, I'm trying to remember the name of the stage in Turtles in Time. Neon Knight Riders. That's the stage. That's what this reminds me of. Here's an interesting thing. So I was practicing this. I think this game has a subtle rank system where this section is way harder if you haven't continued than if you have continued. So I end up dying more than I normally do because this section's actually a little bit different, because I feel like because of rank, and for people who aren't shmup players and don't know that term rank is dynamic difficulty within a game. So the better you're playing, so to say, the farther you're getting without dying and stuff, the harder the game's patterns and enemies are. And then you'll definitely see on this fight that come into play compared to if you fight it without. Either it gets easier if you continue, or it gets harder if you don't, you know. It's one or the other. Maybe it's just drops down the difficulty if you continue. Maybe that's how it works, but either case, yeah, it's different than if you make it through without dying. So what am I standing on? 5 lives? I remember coming into this section with 5 lives. I was like, okay, I got this shit. 5 lives. Easy sauce. Then I get hit with that. I'm like, oh god. This is gonna get ugly, isn't it? And it did get ugly. I am not proud of how this section went, I'll tell you that much. Because it definitely gets ugly. Like, I missed the jump there. I'm like, okay, fuck, I'm down to 2 lives now? This is not good. 1 life. Well, actually 2, the way it works. I was like, okay, I can still beat this guy. I just need to cheese his ass. So how I cheese him is, I need to die near him so I can abuse the invincibility frames and knife him. 2, 3. I was afraid to go for 4, so now I was like, oh. And luckily that finished him off. I didn't have to worry about it too much. I wonder if hardcore mode has another final boss, like a true last boss. I kind of suspect that it does. I should check out some hardcore replays and see if it does or not, but it just feels like this game has a true last boss, but it might not. I'm not sure. So yeah, that's it. Made it to the end. And the funny thing is, or kind of the annoying thing is that the first time you clear the game, it has this whole ending sequence, which is cool, but every time you clear the game it plays this ending sequence. So even if it's, for me, this is like my 4th or 5th time clearing the game, just, you know, my first true 1cc without dying, without continuing. And so, yeah, it is a little bit annoying that you have to go through the entire end sequence each time. So I've gotten in the habit of just resetting the game after I clear it, but this time I thought I'd play it out. See, this is when I discovered Mavra as a girl. I was like, oh, because I thought it was a Zero type character, just a dude with long hair. She's like a cross between Samus and Zero. I love how that guy is so similar to Ryu from Ninja Gaiden. He plays quite a bit differently though, once you unlock him. I might do a run with him. It's actually quite a bit harder than using Mavra, I think, because of his shorter range. So yeah, this is pretty much the end of my commentary. However, I encourage you to enjoy the final song, and I decided to try and do a little choreographed dance with my inputs, with my input display, which you might find enjoyable or just stupid. So, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the music.